Hello, everyone, and welcome to DataBank's CISO Corner. I'm Dane Dittamore, and joined by DataBank's very own Chief Information Security Officer, Mark Houpt. Hi, Mark. Good morning.
Hey, Dane, it's great to see you today.
It is a very good day. It's actually snowing here in Colorado, if you can believe that.
No, it's spring. We've passed that time. It's not even just meteorological spring, but it's real spring, and it's still snowing, huh?
It was 60 degrees yesterday and
Yeah,
snowing today.
there
So
you go.
that's spring for us, right?
Right. I guess
Yeah.
so.
Well, good to see you, and good to have you on as usual. And for those keeping track at home, this is episode 19 of DataBank CISO Corner. And so today, let's talk about the importance of personnel background investigations.
Yeah, let's do that. Unfortunately, that's becoming an increasingly important scenario because, well, just because of a lot of things, but mostly related to regulation and liability aspects. So it is important for us to look at.
Yeah, so let's just take this kind of a basic question. Are there more data security incidents caused by ill-intentioned personnel? Just give us a little bit of a history of kind of maybe how it used to be versus what you're seeing now.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, this is going to shock a few people, but throughout history, it's always been the insider threat type of scenario that's caused the problems. If you want to go all the way back into the history of things, data security started out with governments and eight organizations trying to protect their internal confidential documents, their secrets. The military trying to protect their secrets from an outside source. So if you go back and you look, all the way back in our own history, let's just go back to World War II and through the Cold War, you know, the most effective way that the enemy or perceived enemy got a hold of our intelligence information was by turning an inside person into a spy for them. Okay. And nothing is different about that within the business environment, believe it or not. The statistics show that somewhere between 60 and 70%, depending on who you see, is producing that statistic of security incidents are occurring because of insider situations. Now, not all of those 60, 70% are related to somebody actually deliberately being nefarious. Some of those are because people forget. So, for example, a few years ago, one of the, I'm not going to use the company's name, but one of the large credit reporting companies had a major breach because someone forgot to set some settings inside a system, which allowed the breach. Now, that was an inside issue that an outside entity took advantage of, but it was really an inside issue. And the problem is that we're also finding inside people who are willing to betray, if you will, to use a big term, betray their corporations uh, for personal gain, either monetary or most frequently because they don't like the direction or they don't like some
Right.
policy that the company is going for. And they are doing that out of a vengeance, if you will. And we've seen a lot of that in the past 3 years since COVID. People don't like going, some people don't like going remote. Other people don't like having to come back from remote. So they do things that cause harm to their organizations as a result.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so do you have an example of, I guess maybe ill-intentioned personnel versus more of the outside threat. I guess we want
Yeah.
to keep this in line of personnel background investigations because that's the topic today. But
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
what are we trying to do with personnel background investigations that today maybe that we used to not do?
Well, okay, great example. So, or great question, I should say. So, a lot of our data is now online, and in years past, a lot of the government data was the type of data that was held behind government doors, and it was not shared with civilian entities like DataBank or other similar organizations. And so I'm going to just use a generic example. The Criminal Justice Information System, or CJIS, is the law enforcement main database that's held by the FBI and all the different agencies, all the way down to your local police department. They put data into that, and they extract data from it to understand whether somebody they pulled over for a traffic violation has a warrant or has a criminal history, and what they're dealing with. So this type of product, the CJIS product, has everything from an incarcerated person's medical history and their dietary requirements, what we fed them, if you will, even their library and training education functions, all the way up to the criminal activities that they do either incarcerated, when they are incarcerated, or what got them incarcerated. So this is like a major clearinghouse, if you will, of all criminal activities that used to be held within inside the four walls of the government. The government did their background investigations, went really deep before you gained access to it. Well, now, because of cloud environments and because they're pushing that type thing to the cloud, organizations of all sorts, for example, a company that perhaps provides incarcerated people with GED training efforts in order to get them educated, or even college level, or maybe an organization that is responsible for providing the food service to a incarcerated individual or a prison system. They're now using the CJIS system through the cloud, which means that people like people at DataBank who are doing data center operations, data center techs, people along those lines that might be doing infrastructure or platform as a service, now have to be background checked to make sure that they themselves were not incarcerated people or know somebody that's an incarcerated person, because with that access, they can literally get in and potentially change the data that's within the CJIS system, and either make the situation better for their themselves or an incarcerated person. So we need to have integrity in this system, and in doing so, we do background checks on people to make sure that they themselves don't have certain types of criminal activity in their background. Another area is in the financial industry. There's multiple areas where you have to do background investigations in that type of environment. One is to determine whether or not an individual is on a what we call a watch list, or kind of like a no-fly list, if you will. To make sure that if they have access to the financial information, that they can't do transactions on behalf of a terrorist entity, for example. And those types of situations actually do exist, where people will infiltrate into a company with the intent of being that back door, because they know they can't get in through the systems themselves. So what they do is they get employed with a company like ours or a financial institution, with the intent of that company giving them the access so they can do their bad thing. Probably just one example that I can share from about 10 years ago. There were some individuals that were employed by Juniper Networks they got employed specifically so they could write the code for the operating system for Juniper routers and switches. And in that process, what they did, their whole goal was to get there so they could create backdoors and put things into the code inside the Juniper software in order to allow external entities to come in. And so we have to watch out for that kind of thing. And we do that by doing the background investigations.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, doing our homework. Knowledge is power, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But be a lot more cautious about who we hire, and maybe slow roll it a little bit instead of just putting somebody in a spot. Make sure you've got the right person. So
right. Not only
yeah.
that is, once somebody's hired, especially if they've been here for a while, you also want to do re-investigations to make sure that they haven't done something from the point in which they got hired to the point in which you're doing the re-investigation. And depending on what kind of data you're dealing with, that could be anywhere from every year to 5 years that the re-investigations have to occur.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we take our annual security education, if you will, but
Yep.
along with that, I think the company should kind of investigate employees.
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while. So
and we do that. DataBank has that policy. Our general policy is that we do a reinvestigation, a new background investigation every 5 years of your employment. But there are some individuals that have a higher trust level and have higher access to things such as perhaps the CJIS system I talked about, or some financial systems, or even the gaming, like a gaming system where we have to be reinvestigated every year or every 2 years. So it depends on your access level as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark. I hope you have a great remainder of your very busy day. I know you've got a hard stop here in a couple minutes. So to our viewers, if you're listening and you'd like to be notified when the next CISO Corner podcast is released, just click the subscribe and the notification bell, and you'll get a notification. And if you have a topic that you'd like Mark and I to cover down the road, please let us know. And you can drop us a note at CISO@databank.com. That's CISO@databank.com. And that's a wrap for today. And as always, be safe and stay secure.